Hello and welcome back from winter break. This is SportsZone. Hope you didn't miss us too much. This is our favorite segment, Studio 90, starting with important stuff as always. I'm joined by Aaron, a little bit of a reduced panel this week, but hopefully we'll be up to capacity in the weeks to come. A lot of things have happened over the winter break. A lot of games have been played in the Premier League, some big names moving clubs, and I think we'll start there. The January transfer window has about a week left, but there's already been some big transfers moving places. Philippe Coutinho, Alexis Sanchez, Virgil van Dijk, a lot of the big money players moving. Aaron, what do you make about those three players in particular moving, and the clubs, what do they gain with those players?
Well, obviously three big transfers, starting off with Alexis Sanchez. You know, he's 29 years old, so he is old, but still a world-class player, world-class winger, and, you know, a top club like Manchester United can always use a player like Alexis Sanchez, a guy who's performed consistently well in the Premier League over the past few years. So I definitely think he is a guy that can help improve Manchester United going forward, definitely in the Champions League. And looking at a guy like Philippe Coutinho, you know, he's always wanted to move to Barcelona. That's always been his goal. Liverpool, I think, was always just a stepping stone for him to move to a bigger club like Barcelona, and he's definitely earned it. You know, he's played well for Liverpool. He's been their best player over the past few years. It's interesting because he will not be able to play for Barcelona in the Champions League since he's already cup-tied with Liverpool. I thought he might stay at Liverpool until the summer and play in the Champions League with them, but he definitely wanted to make that move as quickly as possible. And then with that money, obviously, Liverpool signing Virgil van Dijk, they were in desperate need of a good center back. You know, Dejan Lovren just wasn't cutting it for them, and I definitely think Virgil van Dijk is an upgrade over him. And they paid a lot of money for him, the most for any defender, but at the end of the day, I think it will be worth it because they needed a center back and they got the guy they needed.
Some good analysis there, and I think we'll stay in Spain, and the team who Philippe Coutinho thought maybe would be a big competitor, Real Madrid, is really off the pace in Spain. They're sitting in fourth place in La Liga, a good 20 points off the pace set by Barcelona. This is a Barcelona team without Neymar, who obviously moved to PSG, without their big money acquisition of Ousmane Dembele, who's been hurt for the majority of the season. Real Madrid really in shambles. Cristiano Ronaldo has only 6 league goals up to this point, really off the pace that he's sort of set in his career thus far. The defense not getting the job done. A lot of talk about Real Madrid maybe strengthening in this January transfer window. Aaron, do you think there's anything that Real Madrid can really do to salvage their season?
I mean, it's going to be tough. Barcelona are so much far ahead, and you mentioned, you know, everybody thought once Neymar moved that Real Madrid would win La Liga, but Barcelona have played so well even without Ousmane Dembele. They played great football, and Real Madrid just sort of haven't been able to cut it. And, you know, when they won the Champions League last summer, they didn't really make any big acquisitions in the summer like they usually do. And I think that kind of hurt them because they sort of figured that they could keep the same lineup and it would go well, and that Ronaldo wouldn't slow down. But, you know, he's human and he's getting older, and you can see now that he's slowing down. There have been talks, Eden Hazard's been linked to them, Harry Kane's been linked to Real Madrid. I don't think either one of them are going to move in this January transfer window. I can see maybe in the summer, but definitely not in January. So if they don't bring in anybody in the January transfer window, I can't see them improving for the rest of the season, just because guys like Ronaldo, Benzema, Bale, they've been off form, they haven't been playing well. And if you're not able to bring in another world-class player, I don't really see them improving for the rest of the season.
Yes, good points there. Mo Salah, another name that kind of oddly is being linked with Real Madrid, but when you look at their season, La Liga is basically, the race is run there. They have to play PSG in the Champions League, so you could be looking at a season where Real Madrid is playing for no silverware, which is really odd, especially recently where Real Madrid has been really competitive on the world scale. But I think we'll jump back to the Premier League. A lot of those names you mentioned being linked with Real Madrid are from the Premier League, which is seeing a bit of a resurgence and had been gaining a lot of notoriety because of the success of Manchester City, who was sort of pursuing an undefeated, invincible season, but that came to a crashing halt against Liverpool. A thrilling game, really, 4-3, where Manchester City was brought back down to earth, suffered their first defeat of the season, Aaron, I don't think this really puts much in the title race, but is this sort of indicative that the race for the top four is going to be competitive when a team who's in fourth place like Liverpool can really compete with a team at the top like Manchester City?
I definitely think so, and the race for the top four is going to be the major storyline going forward, just because Manchester City have pretty much clinched the league. And you look at a team like Liverpool, they go out and they beat Manchester City and they lose in consecutive weeks to Swansea and West Brom. So definitely, they need to be more consistent. All those teams vying for the top four need to be able to keep that consistency, especially versus the lower clubs going forward. You look at teams like Liverpool, Tottenham, Arsenal. Arsenal have been linked to a few players like Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, so maybe that can elevate them. But definitely going forward, the race for the top four is going to be the most entertaining thing in the Premier League, because even though Manchester City lost to Liverpool, they're going to win it. I think everybody knows that.
Yeah, it seems pretty much a foregone conclusion. Manchester City chasing trophies on 4 different fronts, which would be something that hasn't happened in England in a very, very long time. They're clearly cream of the crop above the rest, but you mentioned consistency, a problem with a lot of those teams below them. Even Chelsea and Manchester United, who are sort of comfortably in second and third, have suffered their lapses as well. So that'll be interesting sort of to follow as the gate sort of becomes shorter and the season comes to an end. But I think before we wrap up this segment, we will talk about an oddly placed game. The United States plays Bosnia and Herzegovina this Sunday. Not really an international break, so a lot of international players or players playing in Europe aren't going to get the chance to play. So in their January camp, a lot of MLS guys, maybe guys who don't see a lot of minutes for the U.S. get a chance to shine. Aaron, what are you sort of looking for in this culmination of the January camp against Bosnia for this U.S. team?
Well, this game's all about the young players. It's one of the youngest squads called up to the U.S. team I've ever seen. And if the U.S. are going to improve going forward, we're going to need to develop these young players and make them into critical parts of our national team. 2 guys who come off the top of my head are Tyler Adams and Christian Roldan, both young midfielders who have a lot of promise. And definitely I'm going to be looking to see these 2 step up in this game, and certainly over qualifying going into, when is it, 2022? It's so long, but we're going to have to wait for it. But I definitely think the young players are the big part of this U.S. camp. A lot of players who sort of have been given a lot of chances, like Jordan Morris and Josh Caesardis, who I don't really like to see there, but they're going to be there anyways just because of their name. So this is definitely going to be an interesting game. It's going to be interesting to see who starts and who plays well, and it will definitely be indicative of who we see going into the World Cup, hopefully in 2022.
Yeah, this is coming at a really important time for the U.S., sort of on the heels when Jonathan Gonzalez, the player who had the chance to play for the United States, or Mexico, who had played at the under-23 level over 20 times, pledged his allegiance to Mexico, sort of shows the state that U.S. soccer is in. They don't have a president at the moment, sort of that. All those storylines crafting up as they don't really have a World Cup to look forward to. They may dominate U.S. Soccer over the summer. But that is all the time we have for this edition of Studio 90. Stick around for more SportsZone after this.